Chapter 8. The Price of Excellence. The sabotage started small enough that I almost missed it. My training schedule changed overnight. I arrived at the practice yards at my assigned time to find them already occupied. Students working through exercises I should have been part of. The administrator checked her crystal tablet with practice sympathy.
You're marked for the afternoon session now. Didn't you receive the notification?
I hadn't, but arguing would accomplish nothing except making me look disorganized. The afternoon session was overcrowded. Students packed shoulder to shoulder, fighting for space and instructor attention. I managed to complete my exercises but learned nothing new. Just repetition and frustration. The next day, my focus crystals went missing. They were small devices, polished stones that helped channel chaos smoothly. Not essential, but useful for complex binding work. I kept them in my trunk, locked with a simple ward that should have prevented casual theft. The ward was intact when I checked. The crystals were simply gone. I reported it to the dormitory administrator. She made notes, promised to investigate, her expression suggesting this happened constantly and was never resolved.
Perhaps you misplaced them?
She offered.
Initiates are often forgetful under stress.
I hadn't misplaced them, but I bought replacements from the Academy stores, expensive enough to hurt my minimal stipend. Those disappeared within a week. Then my thread anchors vanished. Specialized tools used in complex binding patterns, unique enough that stealing them served no practical purpose. This was about disruption, not acquisition. A note appeared under my door one morning. Room reassignment, effective immediately. Report to the administration building for new quarters. I spent 2 hours navigating bureaucracy before discovering the reassignment was false. By the time I returned to my actual quarters, I had missed an entire training session. The pattern became clear through repetition. Schedule changes that weren't real. Equipment that vanished. False summons that sent me chasing through the academy while actual work proceeded without me. The sabotage was too careful to prove, too consistent to ignore. I tried mentioning it to Desta, my roommate who shared the communal space. She was quiet, practical, from a farming village that had been hit by a minor outburst 2 years ago. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies either. She went pale when I described the missing equipment.
I can't afford to get involved,
she whispered, glancing toward the door like someone might be listening.
My family needs the stipend they pay for my service. If I get on the wrong side of the legacy binders, they'll find a way to get me expelled. Then my parents lose the income and my younger sister has no chance at education.
She retreated to her private room before I could respond, the door closing with a soft click that felt like abandonment. I was alone in this. Completely. The isolation settled over me like fog, cold and suffocating. Other initiates who had been neutral now avoided eye contact in hallways. Study groups I had tried to join suddenly had no available spaces. Even instructors seemed slightly more dismissive, their patience thinner. Someone was orchestrating this. The question was who and how to prove it. Cassia Thornhart approached me in the dining hall 3 days later. She was pretty in a carefully constructed way. Soft features, perfectly styled hair, a smile that suggested genuine warmth. Everything about her presentation screamed harmless, trustworthy, concerned friend. I knew better the moment she sat down across from me uninvited. "Liv," she said, her voice pitched to carry to nearby tables without seeming loud.
"I'm so glad I found you. I heard the most awful rumor, and I just had to warn you."
I set down my fork slowly. "What rumor?"
"People are saying."
She leaned in conspiratorially, her expression pained.
They're saying you were somehow responsible for the outburst that destroyed your father's caravan, that you triggered it through carelessness or incompetence.
Her voice rose slightly on the question, ensuring everyone within earshot heard clearly.
Obviously, that's ridiculous.
Cassia continued, her tone dripping false sympathy.
I mean, how could anyone believe you caused something that killed 40 people? But you know how gossip spreads in places like this. I just thought you should know what people are saying so you can defend yourself.
She stood, touching my shoulder with apparent concern.
If you need someone to talk to, I'm here.
Then she was gone, leaving behind poison wrapped in kindness. I sat frozen, watching the reaction ripple through the dining hall. Whispered conversations, sideways glances, the calculation in dozens of eyes as students processed what Cassia had just planted. She had never accused me directly, had even defended me. But she had spread the rumor more effectively than any direct accusation could have. By pretending to warn me, she made it sound credible. Made it sound like everyone was already talking about it. And now they would be. I forced myself to finish eating, every bite tasting like ash. Around me, the whispers grew.
Did you hear the caravan girl caused the outburst? 40 people dead because she was incompetent? No wonder she's desperate to prove herself. She's trying to make up for mass murder.
The story mutated as it spread, details added with each retelling. I had been showing off, had pushed my newly manifested magic beyond safe limits, had ignored warnings from the response team escorts, had survived only because others died protecting me. None of it was true. All of it was believed. By the end of the week, my isolation was complete. The few students who had been neutral now crossed to the other side of hallways when they saw me coming. Study areas emptied when I entered. Even instructors seemed to regard me with increased wariness, like I might explode into chaos at any moment. I was marked, dangerous, guilty of crimes I hadn't committed but couldn't disprove. The academic sabotage escalated in tandem with my social isolation. My theoretical exam on convergence magic went missing before it could be graded. I had spent 3 days writing that analysis, detailing the mathematical relationships between cleaving patterns and binding networks. The work had been exceptional. I knew it was exceptional. Master Theron summoned me to her office, her expression cold.
Your examination is not in my records,
She said, tapping her crystal tablet.
Either you failed to submit it or you removed it after submission. Both possibilities suggest dishonesty.
I submitted it, I said. I put it in the collection box with the others. There were at least 5 people who saw me do it.
None of whom remember seeing you, according to my inquiries.
Master Theron's voice was flat, brooking no argument.
You'll retake the examination tomorrow, under supervised conditions to ensure academic integrity.
The retake was humiliating. I sat alone in a sealed room while an instructor watched my every movement, ensuring I accessed no outside resources. The questions were different but equally complex, requiring me to synthesize multiple theoretical frameworks into coherent analysis. I poured everything into it. Every hour of study, every pattern I had memorized, every insight I had developed through practice. The result was better than my first attempt. When the scores posted, I had achieved the highest mark of any initiate. Perfect accuracy, elegant reasoning, insights that suggested deep understanding rather than rote memorization. It should have been vindication. Instead, Millicent Ashwood loudly speculated in the common room about advance access to questions.
How else could someone with her background score so high? Legacy students train for years and she just walks in and aces advanced theory. Something isn't right.
Others nodded agreement. The logic was circular, self-fulfilling. I couldn't win because winning proved I must have cheated. The practical demonstration was worse. We were executing basic convergence patterns in front of assembled instructors, partnered exercises that showed our understanding of synchronized casting. I had practiced obsessively, determined to prove my competence through flawless execution. I reached for my focus crystals, the ones I had hidden this time, warded with everything I knew how to prevent theft. They shattered the moment I channeled through them. The chaos spiraled out of control immediately. My binding pattern collapsed, threads whipping wildly as raw magic sought any outlet. I felt the ink surging, pushing toward dangerous accumulation, my control slipping. I grabbed the chaos by force of will, pulling it back through meditation techniques that left me shaking and sweating. Slowly, painfully, I wove the raw magic into neutral patterns and let it dissipate safely. No one was hurt, but it was close. Master Theron stood before me, her expression carved from stone.
Reckless channeling.
She said,
You will report for additional meditation training every evening for the next 2 weeks. If I see another display like that, you'll be removed from advanced classes.
"Someone tampered with my crystals," I said. The words came out desperate, pleading. They were fine yesterday. Someone must have.
Are you accusing another student without evidence?
I had no evidence, just certainty and suspicion, and the knowledge that my crystals had been perfect before today. No, Master Theron.
Then accept responsibility for your equipment and your control.
She dismissed me with a gesture. I walked from the demonstration area in silence, feeling dozens of eyes tracking my failure. Whispers followed like ghosts. The system was designed so that defending myself made me look guilty. Every attempt to prove competence was twisted into evidence of manipulation or instability. I was caught in a trap with no visible exit. Only Dane's combat class offered any respite, and even that was complicated. He treated me exactly like every other student, demanding, critical, occasionally brutal in his corrections. But he was fair in ways that felt revolutionary after weeks of sabotage. When I executed a difficult binding pattern perfectly, weaving support threads through Aldrich's channeling without overcompensating, Dane acknowledged it with a curt nod.
Petter, you're learning to work within limitations instead of fighting them.
When I fumbled, letting my concentration slip and producing threads that crossed incorrectly, he explained what went wrong with clinical precision.
The angles are off by 15 degrees. That creates instability in the network. Again, and this time visualize the geometry before you weave.
No mockery, no twisted interpretations, just direct assessment of technique. Most importantly, he didn't participate in the social games that consumed the rest of the academy. When Seraphina tried to dominate training exercises by claiming the best cleaver partners, Dane rotated assignments without comment. One session, she would work with the strongest channeler. The next, she would partner with someone barely competent. Everyone cycled through. Excellence rewarded with challenge rather than privilege. When Lyanna accidentally disrupted my casting by creating a binding net that interfered with mine, Dane assigned her to solo exercises for the remainder of class.
Interference is a combat tactic.
He said, his voice carrying across the yard.
In training, it's wasted energy. You'll drill basic patterns until you remember the difference.
Lyanna's face flushed with anger, but she didn't argue. No one argued with Dane. His interventions were subtle, almost invisible. But they mattered more than he probably realized. I started watching him more carefully between exercises, noticing details that others missed or ignored. The way his movements were slightly too stiff in the mornings, like his joints needed time to loosen. The silver sheen that settled on his shoulders after heavy channeling, visible if you knew to look. The tremor in his hands when he hadn't used magic in a while. Fingers twitching with need for the release that channeling provided. He was burning through ash faster than he should, pushing himself harder than safe limits, using magic more than necessary because the alternative was crystallization advancing unchecked. I recognized it because I did the same thing. The magic called to me constantly. That addictive rush of weaving chaos into patterns. The transcendent feeling of touching something beyond normal existence. I wanted to practice every moment, to chase that high despite knowing it accelerated ink accumulation, excellence as armor, competence as protection against vulnerability. We were both running from something by throwing ourselves into the only thing we were good at. The difference was that his running would end in crystallization. A glass statue, frozen forever in perfect, terrible order. Mine would end in dissolution. A shrieking shadow thing, fragmented across infinite chaos. Neither of us seemed capable of stopping. The breaking point came during a group combat exercise in the 5th week. Students were divided into teams of 4, 2 dyad pairs assigned to work together. The exercise simulated outburst response, requiring coordinated magic to handle multiple threats simultaneously. I was paired with Aldrich again. Our partner dyad consisted of 2 legacy students, a male cleaver named Garrett and his binder partner Izel. They were competent, experienced, and made it clear through body language and clipped responses that they considered this assignment beneath them.
Just stay out of our way.
Garrett said before the exercise began.
We'll handle the actual combat.
The scenario began simply enough. Mock monsters spawned from a simulated chaos vent, spelled constructs that moved and fought like real threats without the actual danger. The terrain was deliberately unstable, sections marked with chaos corruption that would spread if not contained. Spelled mannequins represented civilians trapped in the zone. The objective was clear: eliminate threats, stabilize corruption, evacuate civilians. Standard outburst response protocol. Garrett and Izel immediately charged the monsters, their convergence magic flashy and effective. They executed a severing storm that cleared a dozen constructs in seconds, silver and rainbow light creating spectacular effects that would have looked impressive to any observers, which left Liv and Aldrich to handle everything else. Civilians, I said to Aldrich, pointing to the mannequins scattered through the corrupted zone. We need to protect them while containing the spread. He nodded, his nervous energy focusing into something like determination.
I'll cut away the corruption advancing on the civilian clusters. You stabilize?
Yes, stay within sight range. If something goes wrong, I need to see you to provide support. We split up, working in parallel rather than true synchronization. This wasn't convergence magic, just coordination. But it was effective. I wove reality anchors around the civilian mannequins, creating zones of enforced stability where chaos couldn't spread. The technique was exhausting, requiring constant concentration to maintain multiple fields simultaneously. Aldrich moved through the corrupted sections, his sword channeling weak but precise cleaving magic. He cut away contamination before it could spread to structures or civilians, carving clean lines that separated chaos from order. It was tedious work, unglamorous and critical. Behind us, Garrett and Izel fought with theatrical efficiency. Their combat was spectacular, each spell more impressive than the last. They drew instructor attention, performed for the gallery, made sure everyone watching knew they were the stars of this exercise. Meanwhile, Aldrich and I saved every single civilian, every mannequin evacuated, every structure stabilized. The corruption contained to minimal spread. We weren't flashy, but we were thorough. The exercise ended after 20 minutes. Master Theron surveyed the results, her expression neutral as she made notes on her crystal tablet.
Assessment?
She announced to the assembled class.
Adequate combat performance from the primary dyad.
Garrett and Izel accepted the praise with practiced humility.
Exceptional support work from Harrow and Aldrich.
The words were spoken without emphasis, a footnote to the main performance. Adequate combat got public recognition. Exceptional support got a passing mention. I stood in the aftermath, watching other students congratulate Garrett and Izel on their impressive display. No one mentioned the civilians we had saved. No one acknowledged that without the support work, the flashy combat would have been meaningless. The Legacy students got the glory. We got relegated to background. That night, I sat in my narrow room with my journal, candle flickering shadows across stone walls. The words came slowly, painfully, as I processed what I had learned. 5th week at the academy. The social warfare continues. My equipment vanishes. My work is sabotaged. Rumors paint me as a murderer who caused the outburst that killed 40 people. Every attempt to defend myself makes me look guilty. The system is designed to crush anyone without connections or status. I'm losing a game where the rules are invisible, and victory is impossible. Today's exercise proves something I've been suspecting. I'm never going to win the political battle. I don't have the bloodline, the connections, the social graces that make Legacy students untouchable. But maybe I can be so good at the actual magic that politics become irrelevant. Garrett and Izel got the praise for flashy combat. Aldrich and I saved every civilian. Master Theron acknowledged it, even if no one else cared. That has to mean something. Excellence in service. Competence where it actually matters. Not for glory or recognition, but because the work itself is important. It's not much of a strategy, but it's all I have. Dane sees it too, I think. The way he evaluates technique over performance, substance over style. He doesn't care about legacy status or social hierarchy. He cares about whether you can actually do the work when it matters. That's why his class is the only place I feel like I can breathe. I just have to survive everything else long enough to prove I'm worth keeping. I closed the journal and extinguished the candle. Darkness pressed in, familiar and suffocating. The ink was building again, that restless hunger for magic use. I wanted to practice, to weave something beautiful and complex just to feel that addictive rush. But I forced myself to breathe slowly, to meditate, to manage the chaos through discipline. Tomorrow there would be another transfer session. Torrin's predatory smile and mechanical kiss that never quite cleansed enough because I couldn't make myself vulnerable to someone who enjoyed my discomfort. Tomorrow there would be more sabotage, more rumors, more invisible attacks I couldn't defend against. Tomorrow I would wake up and do it all again because the alternative was giving up, and I had never learned how to give up, even when giving up might have been the smarter choice.